It's not very popular in the US or UK academy these days, and to have, you know, the single most popular cultural theorist and philosopher going around sort of saying, you know, he opens his new book, The Parallax View, which again is probably his most serious book in a few years since the ticklish subject. He opens this book by declaring himself a dialectical materialist and saying what we need is a reinvigoration of dialectical materialism today. I find this a very interesting and very contradictory situation. Zizek then is irrepressible. He continues to produce at least 2 books a year in English, and may well have just published what will become his magnum opus, The Parallax View. He makes documentaries. He's made a 3-part documentary on the history of cinema. He's had documentaries made about him. He does lecture tours around the world. He's an extraordinarily energetic figure. The secondary literature from Zizek has also now begun to emerge at an astonishing rate. There are at least 6 critical and not so critical introductions to Zizek which have been published in the last couple of years. There are at least 3 collections of essays on his work which were either published last year or are in print this year. This is not to mention the launch of an international journal of Zizek studies. Okay, there's not many living theorists who have the whole journal, international journal, devoted to them. You know, for most theorists, you wait till they're dead, and then you sort of set up the journal. And the release of 1 or 2 documentaries, which with no apparent sense of irony, give Zizek the full rock star treatment. If you get a chance to see Zizek, the movie, please go and see it. It's awful, all right? You have this character wandering around like he's some kind of rock star. He's filmed and you have all these adoring fans sort of going up to him, sort of kissing him on the cheek and you know, wanting to sit next to him. This is supposed to be one of the most dangerous radical critics working today. This is someone who seems to be going around the world arguing for the fall of capitalism, and at the same time, he's, you know, worshipped as some kind of rock star. Again, it's very interesting, it's very contradictory, a very peculiar situation that Zizek holds. Now, if there is a thread that draws together these introductions and these volumes of critical essays, it is Zizek's extraordinarily seductive synthesis of Lacanianism, Hegelianism, and Marxism, filtered through the lens of popular culture, is pressed into the service of a coherent and consistent political and philosophical project. As Sarah Kay notes in the opening page to her introduction for Polity Press, at the core of Zizek's work is a vigorous reactivation of Lacanian psychoanalysis in the service of a project at once political and philosophical. Now, it's really this issue that I want to take up here today. Is there a coherent political and philosophical project that Zizek is working on? Now, I'll do this through 2 main areas. I will look at 1, his relationship to Lacanianism, and 2, his relationship to Marxism. All right? Because if you go, Zizek has a number of series of books that he himself edits, and if you go to the prefaces of these books, what he sort of says in the preface is that, you know, this series is dedicated to 1, a reactivation of Lacanian orthodoxy, and 2, a reactivation of Marxist orthodoxy. Right? And he keeps repeating that. In the most recent edited volume, which I'll talk about in a moment, Lacan, the silent Lacan, no, the hidden Lacan, or Lacan's silent partners, that's what it's called, Lacan's silent partners. Okay? He again re-emphasizes that what he's trying to do through this volume of collected essays is retrieve Lacanian theory from Marxism. Right? So this is a constant running theme. How orthodox is Zizek's Lacan? And how orthodox or how Marxist is he? Before doing this, let me just say one of my main concerns with a lot of the literature that is coming out with Zizek, and perhaps suggest something to keep in mind if you're going to start reading Zizek. There's a tendency to read Zizek as if he emerged sui generis, that is to say, out of nothing. And this is most marked in acknowledging his intellectual debts. So, for example, if you start to read any of the secondary literature on Zizek, what you will find is that all the concepts, all the ideas, all the categories in Zizek's are somehow his own. All right? And this is most often not the case. If you read Sarah Kay's critical introduction, for example, at the end of this book, you will see a glossary of Zizekian terms, where it explains to you the big other, it explains to you the object A, it explains to you negation. And there's a whole series of terms. And as you read through these terms, of course, you realize that none of these are Zizek's. All the terms that he uses are Lacan's. And if you look at this glossary, everything except two terms there come directly from Lacan. All right? The two terms that don't come from Lacan come from Hegel. Now, I think Zizek is brilliant. He's a brilliant synthesizer of Hegelianism, of Lacanianism, but he's not. I don't think he is, in my sense, an original thinker in the way that Lacan is an original thinker. He uses Lacanian ideas quite brilliantly, right? In order to, as I mentioned earlier, to explore issues such as nationalism or ideological fantasies. He uses Lacanian concepts brilliantly. But he is not an original thinker in the way that Lacan is an original thinker. And he's not a systematic thinker in the way that Hegel built a philosophical system. Right? He's much more of a bricoleur, piecing together other people's work, creating his own hybrid of this. So, for example, in one introduction, we read what is essentially the Althusserian definition of ideology, as if it is Zizek's. In another, we read the psychoanalytic insight I mentioned the other day into the primal fantasy, as if it is Zizek's. We read the relationship to the big other as if it is Zizek's. Right? Most of these ideas come from Lacan, and there's a crucial difference of them in the way that Zizek uses these concepts to orthodox Lacanianism, and this is the point. And this is now one of the things that's being teased out within the academy in Britain, that Zizek, although he's using Lacanian terminology, he's not using it in a strictly Lacanian way. He's using it in his own way. This is fine by me. Okay, I don't have a problem with this. What I'm saying is that you should be aware of this when you read Zizek, that you're not reading Lacan, and you should not read Zizek in place of Lacan. Read Looking Awry, read Enjoy Your Symptom to get a handle on what Lacan is doing, to try and explain these terms, but keep in mind that this is Zizek's Lacan. Now, okay, let me say a bit more then about Zizek's Lacan or Lacan's Lacan. You've had a series now of seminars on the clinical Lacan, and psychoanalysis is a clinical practice. I'm interested theoretically in the way that psychoanalysis circulates as a cultural and political discourse, but first and foremost, psychoanalysis is a clinical practice. Now, the peculiarity of Lacanian psychoanalysis, particularly in the UK, is that it was first filtered into Britain through the universities and through cultural studies. The area of film studies, for example, that I was talking to you about yesterday in the 1970s.